The second hand here, we see heads up and a limp from the button, a 4x raise from the big blind, and the button calls. And the flop is Jack 10-3 rainbow. We see Queen Jack go for a small bet, and we see the 9-3 go for a call. So this is a pretty reasonable play so far. The Queen Jack could certainly bet bigger. These double Broadway boards are going to be really strong for the pre-flop raiser. And we see, in fact, here it's mirrored or reflected in the idea that they have two Broadway cards, and the button has a hand that the big blind wouldn't have in this part of the game tree. Turns a 4. We see the big blind continuing to bet again, kind of on the small side relative to the pot. It's just around 40% of the pot. Now we see the 9-3 call again. I understand the stickiness with a pair on a rainbow board. Your opponent could be bluffing, but it's dicey. We're in very dicey territory. I'm going to make a couple comments about the pre-flop decision as well, where I think the decision to limp in with 9-3 suited is totally valid, but these are the types of hands that tend to make for really nice raises. And the reason is because when you get post-flop, you have a hand that has decent playability. We're suited. We also benefit from folding out opponents' hands pre-flop of, let's say they have Jack 2 offsuit, or a hand like Queen 3, or what have you. Getting them out with those hands is quite nice. And we don't really care if we fold to a 3-bet with a hand like 9-3. It's not so strong where if we had a hand like, let's say, 9-6 suited, we might not want to raise and call a 3-bet. We might vastly prefer limping and calling a raise, keeping the pot smaller with a better hand so that we don't have to either play too big of a pot or raise and fold to a 3-bet where we sacrifice our equity with that holding. So anyway, we're here now, and on the river, our opponent bets a really small size. They bet 10% of the pot, and the 9-3 flicks it in, and the Queen Jack wins a nice one. So, the last thing I wanted to kind of touch on here is that when opponents make really small bets on cards that are quite good for them, generally speaking, in this line, the ace is going to be a better card for the big blind. It's so unlikely they're bluffing, because let's just imagine a world in which the big blind has a hand like Queen 9. Probably they're going to make a bigger bet on the ace, trying to get their opponent to fold and represent a strong hand. Now, was Queen Jack strong enough to bet for a bigger size on the ace? Probably it was. I think the play is okay, and practically speaking, they made a pretty nice choice because their opponent was very weak and was almost surely going to fold against a bigger bet. So, really, I think the takeaway from this hand with a heuristic I would look to identify in my gameplay that's highlighted here is when your opponent gets a situation in which the board is very good for their range based on the way that the hand played out, and they make a very small bet, oftentimes that can be an indicator that they're not bluffing, because if they were, they may well have bet bigger. And this is quite common dealing with these varying bet sizes. And that's a lot of what we're doing when we're trying to figure out how to hand read where our opponents are at. We have to discern whether or not the hands that are in their range, which are weak, would bet the sizes that they've bet when we're bluff catching, and we have to decide whether or not the hands that are in their range that are very strong would bet that size when we're trying to maybe make a hero fold or what have you. So or hero call for that matter. Yeah, that's the nature of the beast, right? And that's kind of why we love this game.